I am not a piece of property you can buy. Amara Osei's fist slammed onto the mahogany desk hard enough to rattle the crystal tumbler beside it. Across from her, Kang Tae-sung, Seoul's most feared mafia boss, the man they called the Reaper, finally looked up from the contract he'd been reading. Your father already sold you, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. I'm just collecting what's owed. Amara's hands clenched into fists at her sides. Then you'll be disappointed. Because I don't belong to anyone. Tae-sung's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You have 48 hours to come up with 500 million won. Or you belong to me. 500 million won. That's what her father owed the mafia boss. Amara's father had used her as collateral for his gambling addiction. And now Amara stood before Kang Tae-sung like a newly purchased furniture. Hello and welcome to Afro-Korean Romance Stories. This is our third video and we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Like this video and hit the subscribe button for more stories like this one. Amara had been working a double shift at Seoul Medical Center when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, 17 hours into her shift, exhausted from saving lives while raising her 6-month-old nephew Kofi alone. But something made her pick up. Miss Osei? This is regarding a debt of 500 million won registered under your name. The world tilted. 500 million won. Nearly $500,000. Impossible. There's been a mistake, she managed, her voice steady despite the ice flooding her veins. I don't have any debts. Your father, Joseph Osei, listed you as guarantor. The payment is 3 months overdue. You have 48 hours to settle the account, or we'll proceed with alternative collection methods. The line went dead. Amara stood frozen in the hospital corridor, her scrub still spotted with a patient's blood, her world imploding. Her father. The man who'd abandoned their family 5 years ago to chase gambling tables and cheap dreams. The man she'd worked 3 jobs to support before finally cutting him off. He'd used her name. Sold her credit. Destroyed her future to fund his addiction. She tried calling him. 17 times. Every call went to voicemail. By the time her shift ended at 6 a.m., Amara had learned the truth from his landlord. Joseph Osei had fled Seoul 2 days ago. Disappeared like smoke, leaving his daughter to pay for his sins. The loan sharks found her at her apartment. 3 men in expensive suits, too polite to be anything but dangerous. They didn't threaten. Didn't need to. Just handed her an address in Gangnam and told her to be there by 8 p.m. Mr. Kang wants to discuss payment options, the leader said, his smile not reaching his eyes. Amara knew that name. Everyone in Seoul's underground knew Kang Tae-sung. The Reaper. The man who controlled Gangnam's entire criminal network with an iron fist and a reputation for absolute ruthlessness. People who crossed him didn't get second chances. They just disappeared. She should have run. Should have grabbed Kofi and disappeared into the night. But running meant her younger sister Grace back in Ghana would become a target. Running meant Dr. Park, the hospital director who'd been like a father to her, would face consequences. Her father had made sure the debt touched everyone she loved. So at 8 p.m., wearing her only good dress and carrying a heart full of rage, Amara walked into the lion's den. The Kang organization headquarters looked like a luxury hotel, all glass and steel and money. She was escorted to the top floor, through corridors where men in suits moved with predatory grace, into an office that screamed power and wealth. And there he was. Kang Tae-sung. He was younger than she expected, 35, maybe, but his eyes were ancient. Cold. Calculating. His black hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal suit probably worth more than she made in 6 months. Tattoos peeked from his collar and wrists, dark ink against pale skin. He examined her like she was a ledger entry, something to be evaluated and dismissed. Sit, he commanded. Amara remained standing. I'll stand. His eyebrow raised slightly. The men flanking him tensed. Apparently, no one told Kang Tae-sung no. Your father owes me 500 million won, Tae-sung said, leaning back in his chair. He's gone. That makes you responsible. I never signed anything. Your signature is on the guarantor documents. Forged or not, it's legal enough. He slid a folder across the desk. He offered you as collateral. I'm accepting. The words hit like physical blows. Amara opened the folder with shaking hands. There, her forged signature, her personal information, her life reduced to paperwork. And a handwritten note from her father, my daughter is worth more than money. She'll work it off. Bile rose in her throat. I'm not a possession you can trade. You're either debt payment or a debtor. Choose. Amara lifted her chin, meeting those cold eyes with every ounce of defiance she possessed. Then I'm a debtor. I'll pay you back myself. Every one. With interest. Something flickered across Tae-sung's face. Amusement? Respect? It vanished before she could identify it. 500 million won on a nurse's salary? His voice carried a hint of mockery. You'll be 90 before you clear it. And that's if I don't add interest daily, which I will. Then I'll be 90 and debt-free. Or, Tae-sung stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace, you marry me. The debt disappears. Your family stays safe. You get to keep your pride intact, more or less. Amara actually laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Marry you? I'd rather spend my life in debt than marry a gangster who thinks he can buy people. Tae-sung's expression went deadly calm. That's when she knew she'd made a mistake. He pulled out his phone, swiped through images, then held it up. Photographs. Her sister Grace walking to class in Accra. Baby Kofi at daycare. Dr. Park leaving the hospital. Every person she loved, captured by cameras she'd never noticed. Refuse, Tae-sung said quietly, and everyone in these photos becomes a collection target. Your sister's scholarship disappears. Your nephew's daycare has an unfortunate accident. Dr. Park's hospital faces sudden financial ruin and intense scrutiny about his questionable patients. His eyes bored into hers. I don't need your consent, Miss Osei. I'm offering you a choice because it's more efficient than the alternative. But make no mistake, you will pay this debt. The only question is how many people suffer in the process. Amara's breath came in short gasps. Her hands trembled with impotent rage. This man, this monster, had mapped her entire life, identified every weakness, every pressure point. He'd turned her love for her family into chains. You're a coward, she whispered. Hiding behind threats against innocent people. I'm practical. Tae-sung returned to his desk. You have until tomorrow to decide. Marriage or consequences. Choose wisely. That night, Amara held Kofi and cried for the first time since her sister died. The baby's innocent face reminded her why she couldn't run, couldn't fight, couldn't do anything but surrender. Grace deserved her education. Kofi deserved safety. Dr. Park deserved better than ruin. She returned the next morning, her eyes dry and hard as stones. I'll marry you, she said without preamble. But don't expect a willing wife. Tae-sung looked up from his paperwork, unsurprised. I don't need willing. I need obedient. Then you'll be sorely disappointed. For the first time, Tae-sung smiled. It was a terrible expression, full of dark promise. We'll see about that. The wedding was 3 days later. A cold, transactional ceremony in a private office with a nervous officiant and 2 witnesses, Tae-sung's right-hand man Director Yoon and a lawyer. Tae-sung had sent Amara an expensive designer dress. She wore her simple blue sundress instead, the one she'd bought secondhand, carrying Kofi on her hip like armor. Do you, Amara Osei, take this man? I do. The words tasted like ash. Do you, Kang Tae-sung? I do. He slipped a platinum ring onto her finger, his grip just slightly too tight. A reminder. A warning. When the officiant declared them married, Tae-sung pulled her close for the required kiss. Amara turned her head at the last second. His lips grazed her cheek instead. Defiant already, he murmured against her ear. Every single day, she promised. The wedding photo showed a bride glaring at her groom and a groom who looked like he was calculating how to break something beautiful. Director Yoon looked like he was attending a funeral. Moving into Taesung's penthouse felt like entering a gilded cage. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. Furniture that cost more than cars. Marble everything. Cold. Sterile. Perfect. Taesung led her to the master bedroom, a massive space dominated by a king-sized bed that might as well have been a battlefield. "This is our room," he announced. Amara set Kofi's carrier down carefully. "Your room. I'll take the guest room. We're married. We share a room. We're legally bound on paper you threatened me into signing. That's all. I'm not sharing your bed." Taesung's jaw clenched, the first crack in his controlled facade. "I don't negotiate in my own home. And I don't take orders. Especially from men who buy women like furniture." Amara crossed her arms, meeting his glare with her own. "You wanted a wife? Congratulations. But if you think I'm going to play the obedient little woman, you really should have done more research." The silence stretched between them, thick with challenge. Taesung stepped closer, using his height to intimidate. Amara didn't back down, even though her heart hammered against her ribs. "You're testing me," he said softly. "I'm establishing boundaries. There's a difference." Something shifted in his expression, calculation, reassessment, perhaps grudging interest. Finally, he stepped back. "Fine. Guest room. For now." The words carried dark promise. "But understand something, Amara. Everything in this house belongs to me. Including you. You can have your small rebellions, your separate room, your pride. But at the end of the day, you're mine." "I'm a prisoner," she corrected. "There's a difference." After he left, Amara allowed herself to shake. That was her first victory, small, symbolic, but hers. She'd drawn a line, and he'd respected it. Or at least, he'd chosen not to cross it yet. The first week was war. Taesung demanded she quit her hospital job, too exposed, too public, too many opportunities for enemies to target her. Amara refused. "I'm a nurse," she said over breakfast, feeding Kofi while Taesung read financial reports. "That's who I am. I won't stop helping people because you're paranoid. You're my wife. That's who you are now. I'm your captive wearing a ring. I'm still a nurse." She went to work anyway. He assigned her a 4-man security detail. She tried to lose them in the hospital corridors. They found her. She complained to Dr. Park about the overzealous bodyguards. He nearly had a heart attack when he realized who she'd married. "Kang Tae-sung?" Dr. Park whispered, his face ashen. "Amara, do you know what he is? A controlling bastard who thinks money solves everything?" "Yes, I'm aware." Every night became a battle. Taesung wanted her home by 6. She worked until 8. He demanded she dress appropriately for her position. She wore her scrubs to dinner. He expected deference. She gave him sarcasm and eye rolls. "You're impossible," he told her after she'd ignored his 5th call during a surgery. "You're a tyrant," she shot back. "At least I save lives." His men watched these exchanges with barely concealed horror. No one spoke to Kang Tae-sung like this. No one challenged him and lived to tell about it. But Amara was different. She was his wife, and for reasons he didn't fully understand, Tae-sung let her get away with things that would get others killed. Director Yoon pulled her aside one evening. "Mrs. Kang, a word of advice. The boss isn't used to being defied." "Then he needs the practice," Amara replied sweetly. The real test came 2 weeks into the marriage. Elder Kong, Taesung's uncle and head of the Kong organization, demanded to meet his nephew's surprising bride. A formal dinner. The entire council present. Taesung briefed her like she was going into battle. Be respectful. Be quiet. Don't embarrass me. Amara wore a traditional Korean hanbok, a small concession, but her expression promised nothing. The dinner was excruciating. 12 men in expensive suits, examining her like a curiosity. Elder Kong sat at the head of the table, his aged face sharp with intelligence and cruelty. So this is the African nurse my nephew bought, Elder Kong said in Korean, assuming she wouldn't understand. Amara responded in perfect Korean. I prefer Ghanaian nurse. And I wasn't bought. I was coerced. There's a difference. The table went silent. Taesung's hand found her thigh under the table, squeezing, a warning. Elder Kang's eyes narrowed. You speak Korean. I've lived here 5 years. I also speak English, Chui, and enough Japanese to get by. Languages are useful when you actually listen to people. She smiled politely. Something I understand isn't common in your line of work. Taesung's grip tightened painfully. Amara. But Elder Kong laughed, a cold, calculating sound. She has spirit. I see why you kept her. Though I wonder how long that spirit will last. As long as I breathe, Amara replied. The dinner continued in tense silence. When they finally left, Taesung practically dragged her to the car. I told you to be quiet. His voice was lethal. You told me to be respectful. I was. Respectful doesn't mean silent. It does when I say so. Then you married the wrong woman. Amara yanked her arm free. I'm not one of your soldiers. I don't take orders. And if you think marrying me means owning me, you're going to be very disappointed. Taesung stared at her, something dangerous flickering behind his eyes. Then, unexpectedly, his lips twitched. Almost a smile. Gone before she could be sure. You're going to be trouble, he said quietly. Every single day, she promised. That night, lying in her separate room with Kofi sleeping peacefully beside her, Amara realized something terrifying. She'd seen Taesung almost smile. And some twisted part of her had wanted to make him do it again. 3 a.m., and Amara was yanked from sleep by pounding on her door. She grabbed Kofi protectively before opening it. Taesung stood there, his usually perfect appearance disheveled, blood on his shirt collar. I need you, he said without preamble. Now. In the living room, one of his men lay on the expensive couch, bleeding from a gunshot wound to the shoulder. Director Yoon pressed a towel to the injury, his face grim. He needs a hospital, Amara said immediately, her nurse training kicking in. Not an option. Too many police questions. Taesung's eyes bore into hers. You're a nurse. Fix him. Amara wanted to refuse on principle. But the man was bleeding out, and her oath to do no harm was stronger than her hatred of her husband. I'm an ER nurse, not a surgeon, she said, already moving to examine the wound. If the bullet hit an artery, he'll die without proper equipment. Then make sure he doesn't die. For the next 2 hours, Amara worked with the limited supplies they could provide. The bullet had gone through clean, lucky. She irrigated the wound, stitched it closed with steady hands, administered antibiotics, and monitored his vitals. All while Taesung watched from the shadows, silent and intense. When the man's breathing finally stabilized, Amara sat back, exhausted and covered in someone else's blood for the second time that week. He'll live, she said. But he needs follow-up care. If infection sets in, I'll handle it. Taesung stepped closer. You're very skilled. I told you. I'm a nurse. That's not decorative. She stood, suddenly aware of how close he was, how his eyes had softened from their usual ice. Don't mistake me saving your man for approval of what you do. I wouldn't dream of it. But there was something new in his voice. Respect, maybe. Thank you. The word surprised her so much she almost missed her own response. You're welcome. Their eyes held for a moment too long. Then Kofi cried from her room, breaking the spell. Amara fled, her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the emergency surgery. The next morning, she found an envelope on her door. Inside, a check for 50 million won made out to Seoul Medical Center's charity fund. No note. But she knew. She found Tae-sung in his study. I can't accept this. It's not for you. It's for the hospital. You saved one of my men. I pay my debts. I didn't do it for payment. I know. He looked up from his work. That's why I'm paying. Amara should have left. Instead, she heard herself ask, why do they call you the Reaper? Tae-sung's expression went cold. Because I don't leave loose ends. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get. He returned to his papers. Dismissed. But Amara had glimpsed something beneath the ice. Something almost human. And she couldn't unsee it. Her small rebellions continued. When she discovered Tae-sung had found her father and had him beaten as an example, she was furious despite hating Joseph herself. He's still my father, she raged. He sold you. He deserved worse. You don't get to make that decision. I make every decision. That's how this works. Not about my family. In retaliation, she accidentally ruined his favorite suit in the laundry. Oversalted his dinner until it was inedible. Blasted American pop music at 6 a.m. Reorganized his study so nothing was where he expected. Tae-sung realized what she was doing and cornered her in the kitchen. Childish games, Amara. You want a war? I'll give you one. Just on a smaller scale than you're used to. He leaned against the counter, and she swore she saw amusement flicker across his face. You're the most infuriating woman I've ever met. Good. Maybe you'll divorce me. Never. The word was absolute. You're mine until I say otherwise. I'm no one's. We'll see. The tension between them crackled like lightning. They were standing too close, both breathing too hard. For one insane moment, Amara thought he might kiss her. For one more insane moment, she wanted him to. Then his phone rang, and the spell broke. But the damage was done. Something had shifted between them, dangerous and electric. The real change came at a gallery event Tae-sung dragged her to, some charity function where criminals and politicians mingled over champagne and lies. Amara wore a dress he'd bought her, a small concession to avoid another fight. That's when she met Min Sarah. Sarah was everything Amara wasn't: polished, sophisticated, Korean, familiar with Tae-sung's world. She glided over in a designer gown, her smile sharp as a knife. Tae-sung, she purred, ignoring Amara entirely. It's been too long. Sarah. His tone was carefully neutral. And this must be the wife. Sarah's eyes raked over Amara with barely concealed disdain. How exotic. Your tastes have certainly changed. Amara smiled with all her teeth. You must be the ex-fiancé. I've heard so much about you. Have you? Sarah's laugh was crystalline and cruel. How sweet. Though I'm surprised Tae-sung shared about me. We were together for 3 years, you know. Before he decided to slum it. The words were designed to wound. They succeeded. Amara felt every eye in the room on her, judging, comparing, finding her lacking. If you'll excuse me, she said with as much dignity as she could muster, I need air. She escaped to the balcony, hating the burn of tears in her eyes. She was not going to cry over some elitist ex-girlfriend. She wasn't. Tae-sung found her 5 minutes later. Sarah's always been a bitch. Ignore her. Easy for you to say. You belong in this world. Do I? His voice was strange. Or do I just know how to fake it better? Amara looked at him, really looked. Saw the careful mask he wore, the way he calculated every word, every gesture. The loneliness beneath the power. Why did you really accept me as payment? She asked quietly. You could have just taken installments from my salary. Ruined my father. Why marriage? Taesung was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, Elder Kong wanted to make an example of your father. Brutal. Public. I chose the option that kept you alive and gave you a chance at a decent life. That's not kindness. That's just less cruelty. It's the best I have. The honesty in those words broke something in her chest. She reached out, not thinking, just feeling, and touched his hand. He stared at the contact like it was a foreign concept. Thank you, she whispered. For not being as much of a monster as you could have been. The night is young, he said, but his hand turned, fingers intertwining with hers. I'm still plenty monstrous. They stood like that, holding hands on a balcony while a party full of criminals and elites swirled inside. Two people who shouldn't fit, somehow fitting perfectly. Then Sarah's voice cut through the moment. How touching. The gangster and his charity case. Taesung's expression went deadly. Leave, Sarah. While you still can. Why? I'm just stating facts. She's beneath you, Taesung. A foreigner. A nobody. When you're done with this phase, call me. I'll be waiting. Amara tried to pull away, but Taesung held firm. My wife is none of your concern. But since you asked, she's the only person in this room who isn't afraid of me. The only one who challenges me. The only one who's real. His voice dropped to lethal quiet. And if you disrespect her again, you'll learn exactly how monstrous I can be. Now get out of my sight. Sarah fled. And Amara stared at the man who just defended her, wondering who he really was beneath the reputation. A week later, a threat against Taesung forced them into a safe house. 3 days of forced proximity in a small apartment. 1 bedroom, no escape, just them and baby Kofi. The first day, they barely spoke. The second day, they were forced to cooperate, cooking together, caring for the baby, existing in the same space. By the third day, something had fundamentally shifted. You're terrible at chopping vegetables, Amara observed, watching Taesung massacre an onion. I have people for this. You have people for everything. Don't you ever just do things yourself? Not if I can help it. That's sad. He looked up, genuine curiosity in his eyes. Why? Because you're missing the point of living. It's not about efficiency. It's about experience. Later, Taesung held Kofi while Amara showered. When she emerged, she found them both asleep on the couch, this dangerous man cradling her nephew with unexpected gentleness. You're good with him, she said softly, not wanting to wake them. Taesung's eyes opened. He's innocent. Makes it easier. Were you ever innocent? Once. A long time ago. He looked down at the sleeping baby. My parents died when I was 16. Rival organization. After that, I learned that gentleness was weakness. It's not weakness. It's strength. She sat beside him. Being hard is easy. Anyone can build walls. It takes real courage to stay soft. I don't have that courage. You're holding a baby like he's precious. That's courage. Their eyes met over Kofi's sleeping form. And for the first time, Amara saw Kang Taesung not as the Reaper, but as a man who'd been broken by violence and never learned how to heal. That night, both unable to sleep, they talked. Really talked. About his parents, her sister who died giving birth to Kofi, his empire built on fear, her dreams of opening a free clinic someday. Why nursing? He asked. Because I couldn't save my mother from cancer. So I save everyone else. She pulled her knees to her chest. Why crime? Because after my parents died, I had nothing. Elder Kong took me in. Taught me. By the time I realized what I was becoming, I was too deep to escape. You could still change. Could I? His voice was bitter. I've done things, Amara. Things that can't be undone. Everyone has darkness. That doesn't mean you can't find light. You think you're my light? I think you're more scared of me than I am of you. The words hung between them. Then Taesung did something unexpected. He smiled. It transformed his entire face, made him look years younger. You're absolutely terrifying, he admitted. Good. He reached out, tucking a curl behind her ear. You know what the worst part is? I'm starting to like fighting with you. That is the worst part. But Amara was leaning into his touch. Because I'm starting to like it too. The kiss was inevitable. Slow, searching, testing. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Taesung rested his forehead against hers. This is dangerous, he whispered. Everything about us is dangerous. I can't promise to be good, he said. I can't promise to change completely. I'm not asking you to be good. I'm asking you to be honest. Then honestly? I haven't stopped thinking about you since the day you told me you'd rather be 90 and debt-free. You were so fierce. So unbreakable. And I wanted that fire for myself. Amara pulled back, searching his face. This doesn't change what you are. I know. I still hate what you do. I know. But I don't hate you anymore. I noticed. His thumb traced her lower lip. Somewhere between you ruining my suits and saving my men, I fell for you. And I don't fall, Amara. Ever. She should have run. Should have remembered this was the man who'd threatened everyone she loved. Instead, she kissed him again, deeper this time, admitting what she'd been denying for weeks. She was falling too. Their return to the penthouse felt different. Like they were conspirators now, partners in something neither quite understood. Taesung still controlled an empire. Amara still saved lives. But at night, they came together, arguing, laughing, slowly learning each other. Then Elder Kong shattered their fragile peace. Divorce her. The old man's voice was ice. Marry into the Choi family. Solidify our alliance. Taesung stood in his uncle's office, every muscle tensed. No. This isn't a request. It's not happening. Elder Kang's expression went deadly. You would choose this woman, this foreigner, over your empire? I would burn the empire before I give her up. Then you're weak. And weak men don't lead the Kong organization. Elder Kong leaned forward. Divorce her by the end of the week, or I'll have her removed. Permanently. Taesung's hands clenched into fists. Touch her, and I'll kill you myself. Blood or not. You become a liability. The council agrees. Step down gracefully, or we'll make you. The coup came 3 days later. Half the organization turned against Taesung, loyal to Elder Kang's vision of traditional power. Taesung sent Amara and Kofi to Director Yoon's safe house, then prepared for war. You're giving up everything, Amara said before she left, tears streaming down her face. Not everything. Not you. Why? We've known each other 2 months. This is insane. Taesung cupped her face, thumbs wiping her tears. Because somewhere between hating you and fighting with you, I fell in love with you. And I know I don't deserve you. I know I'm a monster. But you make me want to be better. And that's worth more than any empire. You don't even know what love is. I know it's the only thing I've ever been afraid of. I know it's you. I know I'd rather die than lose you. I hate you. But she was sobbing into his chest. No, you don't. No, I don't. She looked up at him. I love you. And I hate that I love you. Because loving you means accepting the blood and the violence and the danger. You don't have to accept it. Just accept me. They kissed like it was the last time. And it might have been. The war lasted 6 brutal weeks. Taesung dismantled Elder Kang's support piece by piece. Some through strategy. Some through violence. But when the smoke cleared, he stood victorious, and fundamentally changed. The first thing he did was legitimize key operations. The second was establish a free clinic in Amara's name. The third was formally adopt Kofi as his son. And the fourth was keep his promise. 6 months after their forced marriage, Amara walked into the penthouse after her hospital shift to find Taesung in the kitchen, attempting to cook dinner. Badly. What are you doing? She tried not to smile at the mess. Making your favorite. Or trying to. I may have overestimated my abilities. You think? He looked at her, this dangerous man covered in flour, and smiled that rare, real smile. Marry me again. We're already married. Marry me because you want to. Not because I forced you. Have the wedding you deserved. Say yes because you choose me, not because you had no choice. Amara pretended to consider. You're still a criminal. Reformed-ish criminal. You're controlling. I'm learning to ask instead of demand. You're infuriating. You love it. Unfortunately, I do. She walked into his arms. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad my father owed you money. I'm glad I was arrogant enough to think I could control you. You can't. I know. Best decision I never made. He kissed her thoroughly. So, yes. I'll marry you again. For real this time. Because I choose you. Because I love you. Because you're mine. Just as you're mine. No. She pulled back, meeting his eyes. We're each other's. Equally. Or nothing. Taesung knelt right there in the kitchen, covered in flour, and pulled out a new ring, simple, elegant, nothing like the first one he'd forced on her finger. Amara Osei, will you marry me? Not because of debt. Not because of threats. But because I love you more than power, more than safety, more than anything I've ever wanted in my life? Yes. Yes. Always yes. When they kissed, it tasted like victory. Like freedom. Like coming home. Amara Osei had been sold to pay a debt. Kang Taesung had bought a wife to settle accounts. Neither expected to find an equal. Neither expected to find love. But between the hatred and the fighting, the fear and the fury, two people who should never have worked became everything to each other. Sometimes the best love stories start with hate. Sometimes the greatest freedom comes from captivity. And sometimes, the most dangerous man in Seoul falls for the one woman brave enough to challenge him. If you want to see more stories of forbidden love, impossible odds, and couples who fight their way to happiness, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment telling us, would you have chosen the debt or the marriage? Like this video if you love a good hate-to-love romance.